we're live. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today in our second session of Land Your First Client. Today we have a amazing guest, Marcel. He's a founder and CEO of a pretty successful performance agency in Austria, right? He's managing like 8-figure ad spend yearly, leading, number of brands in more than 23 countries. Recently joined as a member of the Forbes Agency Council. So I'm super excited. I was doing a lot of research. He specializes in e-commerce, lead generation, and has a full-fledged agency. So I think we're going to have a pretty good discussion today on pros and cons of going for e-com versus lead gen. What does it take to actually do a full-fledged agency? A lot of the people I've talked to, it's like, just do ads, just do ads. But he's doing everything. He's doing content, he's doing website, he's doing email marketing. He has the whole thing. So I think it's going to be a good discussion on how do you hire people, like how do you scale and provide all those services? How do you specialize as well? I think that's one of the biggest things that we've talked here, and I get a lot of questions. So welcome, Marcel. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for your fantastic introduction. Thank you very much.
So why don't we go ahead? And I think the first thing I want to know is, we get a lot of people here who are starting their careers in digital marketing. They want to actually get a job or start their own agencies. How did you get started? How did you, first got into the whole digital marketing space?
Let me start when I was 14. Yeah, I think it was around about 14. I saw that I really like to make graphic design, like folders and something like that. I like graphic design a lot. I like making pictures, later making videos. And so I start very, very early to make small things like folder for companies and something like that. And I make it, I don't know, like I was 16, it was parallel to school. And later I saw, okay, that's a very classical way. And I already saw that, of course, it's not the way of long-term success because it was a very, very print. It was just print. And yeah, we all know that print isn't the very big next thing. And through my experience with the technical things, because I always was a big nerd, and through my experience through the technical things, I get in contact with websites, with affiliate marketing and something like that. And the first access points through my business career was through websites, which I make, because I really see that, hey, it's almost the same like graphic design, like you make a brochure or something like that, but it's digital. And of course, the first pages look horrible, but I learned it very fast. And I think it was a positive aspect that I early learned to get a good eye for graphic design, because you learn some very basic rules. And no matter if you're making print design or online design, so some rules are very helpful for you for every business. So for example, if you make an ad and you have text on the ad, that you make it optical attractive, you, for example, can add 2/3 an image and 1/3 text or something like that. And this is always looking fine. And that's not a rocket science, but that's just few helpful tips for the daily work. And that was so the first steps in my business career. And yeah, then I started slowly to work in the company of my parents in the marketing department. And I make everything there. So like graphic design, some technical stuff, the whole complete online marketing, like websites, etc. And that was the part where I learned a lot. So of course, I made a lot of mistakes, because 9 years ago, there were some gurus or something like that, but I can't afford them. So, and I don't know that they are here. So I learn a lot by myself, take a look into the networks and get the whole informations. and yeah, I make it. So I get it into practice and try to get a better result then. And that was a very big learning curve. So I saw which things are necessary to get things done and to run, for example, a website, to get a big project on time, to deliver it, etc. And then I saw a few years ago already that this is the thing which I really like, that this is my passion. I like to make things online. I like to build businesses. I like to help entrepreneurs to sell more of their good stuff. And that's the reason why I'm here today, why I created my agency now.
And how did you land your first client? Like at some point you were working and you said like, all right, like I'm going to start my own thing. Was it a point where you just quit and then you started, or was it more of a transition thing of like you were working and you were acquiring clients and you got confident and you got more cash flow? Because a lot of times it's which most people can't just quit their jobs and start an agency if you don't have the cash flow for it. Was it a sudden decision, or was it more of a, like transition, like step by step?
Yeah, it was definitely a transition, because I don't start with the agency business as today. So I start very small as affiliate to make some affiliate stuff, and you can make it every time parallel to your normal job. And that's the thing where I started. So the first thing wasn't for me to get the first client for my agency. The first thing was for me to get a good affiliate campaign and earn some money, to get a good cash flow, to make the next steps. And I make a lot of affiliate things in I don't know how old I was there, I think 22, 23. And I run a lot of affiliate campaigns in completely different niches, completely different countries. And I try a lot in this time. And of course, I learned a lot in this time, because if you invest with your own money, you feel every pain and you remember every mistake. Later when I found my agency, the first client I get through recommendations. So, a guy that knows another guy who needs a service like yours. And this was the first steps to get my first client. So it wasn't a very big agency job. It was just a recommendation.
And were you promoting yourself, or how did that work? How did you get that recommendation? Because I think that's one of the things that we talk a lot about. And I mentioned to people that ask like how to get started. And I'm like, well, just talk to your friends, start talking to your family, and then they'll know someone that knows someone that knows someone who's eventually gonna say like, oh, sure, I'll give it a try.
Same here. So I just talked to my friends and to my family members, and then they know, of course, some other people who could need my services. And I don't really search for to acquire new customers, because I was in my affiliate point of view. And so I didn't really want to get new clients, and I was very needy here in this situation, because the first step for me was to run profitable affiliate campaigns. But of course, later in my business, when I started my agency, it was a very essential point to get new clients and get the right clients, of course, because just new clients doesn't help a lot. You need the right clients to serve the best services. And the first clients I just get through recommendations, from family members, from other clients, etc. So it's very easy.
And what's a right client? Because I think this is a big important question, and you make a good point of like, it's not about new clients, it's about the right clients. What is a right client for you? And I'm sure that has changed over the course of the years, but what's a good client, or what's Definitely. The right client?
So I think that's more different views, or you need more different things, which are very important. So of course, the money side is important, that he or she can afford your services. So that's a big part. And you really have to like with that person, with the, I don't know, with the CEO or your or the guy which you're working in the company. Because if you hate that person or he or she don't like you, it's very difficult to get fantastic results, because it's everywhere. I don't know to say it in English, but it's everywhere some sand in the gear. And you
like friction.
Yeah, and you can't really get great and fantastic results. So you really have to like the persons and the company, and of course you have to identify with the niche, with the products, with the services. Because if you sell something which you don't like or which you don't believe in, it's very difficult to get the right approach in your sales message. So for example, if you don't eat meat and you make advertising for a steakhouse, it's a bit difficult, because you can't feel that what a really steak guy loves at the steak, or what it makes special in the steakhouse. And so it's very difficult. So you really have to like the product or services and believe in it.
And what about, because I've seen that you specialize in e-commerce and lead generation. Why is that? When did you decide? Did you start working with any kind of business, and then when did you say e-com lead gen is like the tool where I'm specializing as well? At what point did you decide that, and why?
It was not planned. So I started at the beginning, and as I mentioned before, in the business of my parents, they have it's a retail shop, so for color and varnishes. And of course, for that reason, I was coming from the e-com side, and there I already have had a lot of experience at e-commerce side. So I think that's the reason why I like e-commerce. And the lead gen part is because it's difficult. I can't really say when I come to the lead gen campaigns, but I saw very early that I need some specialization here in this part. And I know e-commerce and lead gen are not really very niche themes or something like that. It's very broad, but that's the play field where I know which parts are necessary to get the things done and get the campaigns successful.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen is that e-com and lead gen are the only type of businesses where marketing is tied to sales. Like if we work with a restaurant and they're like, well, I want to bring more traffic to the store or the restaurant, right? Like it's very hard for you to be able to say, you know what, the amount of investment you're doing with me is generating 20 new people going to your store. But with e-commerce, it's like, hey, this is how much investing, this is how much sales you're generating. And leads is also like, this is how much you're investing, these are the amounts of leads I'm generating, and these are the amounts of sales that you're generating from those leads. So it's easier to justify your cost and your services. Whereas with other types of businesses, like, you know, like mass products, right? And retail and other places, it's really hard. Like, and there's that whole discussion of like, well, marketing becomes like not even secondary, it's like 10th place, you know? Absolutely. Because it's hard to justify it.
Yeah, you always have a discussion with your customer. For example, if you take the restaurant sample, you always have a discussion with the customer, with the customer. Where are the new clients come from? Are they through, I don't know, because they have good address or your online marketing campaigns? It's always a fight with the customer through the money at the end of the day. And that's a very important point, because I told in the past from the right customer. And if you always have to discuss with the customer about the financial things, it don't make really fun to work on this project.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you make a good point of being able to justify your cost, not just them affording it, but also being able to justify and tie that to sales is important. In terms of lead gen, what are the biggest challenges you see? Because I think one of the biggest things I've seen as well with lead generation is, well, look, your leads don't qualify, and like it's bad leads, and you're not generating enough leads, and they're not good enough. And what challenges do you see and what strategies have you implemented or tactics or things that you do that's people who are starting to provide lead generation services should keep in mind? Because I think it's an interesting like type of client to have, but it comes with specific challenges on sales.
Yeah. So on every lead gen campaign, no matter how big or small it is, there are the same issues at the end of the day. So it's always a tiny way between the right amount of leads with the right quality for the right price. And that's in 99% an issue. So it's very important to get the KPIs to ask the customer which KPIs are necessary, when it's a validated lead, when is a lead not usable for the customer. For example, if you run insurance campaigns and the customer told you, we don't need people over the age of 55. So it's a very important KPI for you, of course, but that's very basic things. I think the most important things or the most crucial things are that you get in contact and speak with your customer or with your client. How is the lead quality? How you can qualify it or how you can graduate it. And what we do here, for example, is we are using a tracker, and we are not only generating leads in the first step. We ask the customers, okay, for example, if you run different campaigns like Facebook, Google, native ads, we ask the customer, okay, where are your real sales coming from? Because a lead is just a lead. It's not money for the customer. So just a contract or something like that is money for the customer or sales. And we ask the customer at the end that he will give us some samples, give us some sample from the customers that we see in our tracker, from which campaigns are they coming from. Because, for example, sometimes the leads on Facebook are much cheaper than on native ads, of course.
Yeah.
But if you take another insight or another data point, you see that, for example, a contract on a Facebook lead is much more expensive than a contract on native ads. And that's the big difference. So it's important that you go one step ahead of the lead, not just see where I can find the cheapest leads, because that's always an issue. To find the cheapest leads, you have to find, again, the right leads, which are convertible for the customer. And I think that's the super important point, that you don't just look, hey, on Facebook, for example, if you make Facebook ads, where I can get the cheapest leads. Because of course, if you say to the algorithm of Facebook, hey, these are my cheapest leads and I want to get the cheapest results. On a very special point, there are just scam leads anymore. So it's not really quality helpful for the customer. And I think here it's very important to get in contact with the customer, ask about the quality, and work very, very deep with the customer. Because, for example, if you sell per lead, so there are different models. We only work as agency. We don't sell you a lead with a price, for example, an insurance lead for this amount, because we always want to get the cheapest lead, and the customer always want the best lead, and that isn't working.
Yeah, I know. I was going to ask you that if have you tried different pricing models? And because a lot of times I've seen companies or agencies that charge like, oh, I'll charge you $5 per lead. And I'm like, well, it doesn't make sense, because then there's no incentive for the agency to do their best job. You're more incentivizing them or just like generating whatever. Or other times where it's like, well, I need at least like 1,000 leads. And it's like, well, yeah, but then like, they're just going to get you the cheapest leads and it's done. Like, have you tried different pricing models in how much you price clients?
Yeah. We really try a lot, or I really try a lot for pricing. And at the end of the day, or today, we have a very, very strict pricing model. So I think we are here in Middle Europe for sure one of the most expensive agencies.
Yeah.
Because it's the only way you can afford the right employees, you can afford the right, and of course the right types of customers, because they really want to achieve something if they spend a lot of money for you. And so that's the reason why we're working with a fixed agency fee. It's a monthly fee, and we have a percentage retainer on the ad spend. And sometimes, for example, sometimes on e-commerce campaigns or something like that, we're working with success fees if we reach a goal.
Of sales or return on ad spend? What are you tied to?
For example, on sales. So for example, if we increase the sales at the end of the year by 10%, we get a special payout.
That makes sense. And then how do you, when you're working with lead gen, because we don't get a lot of people who do lead gen in our series. And so I'm interested in talking about this because we get a lot of questions on this as well. And a lot of times like random questions on, hey, I'm doing this lead generation campaign, like what should I do? So I think this is a topic that people are interested in. How do you track leads? Because I think that's one of the challenges that I've seen as well is, do you use UTMs? Do you centralize everything into an Excel, like a Google sheet? Do you put that into their CRMs, but then you have to make sure that their CRMs have the proper fields to track, you know, where the lead came from? How do you, like, what things have you seen that work to track those leads and ensure that information doesn't get lost? Because it's easy to say, like, I've seen it as well, where it's like, well, where are your sales coming from? I don't know. And then what do you do? Like, then like, yeah, you're like, it's not just like I'll generate you leads, but I need to figure out how to fix that on your CRM or whatever you're using, because otherwise it's going to be a mess in 3 months. So what are the things that you've seen that work to track that better, or how do you prepare the client for you to be able to track? Because I think it's more than the client, it's for your sake, I think.
Yeah, and I can say it, I learned it on the hard way. So I exactly have had the problem that we are not, or that we was not able to track the leads on a good way. And there are multiple things which are working okay, and one method with which we're working now. So we already worked with UTM parameters and it works okay. Why it's not perfect? Because it's the cheapest way, of course, and it works, but it's very complicated. For example, if you have multiple different campaigns, other people or employees working on the UTM parameter, it's difficult to get a real structure. And that's the reason why we are not working with UTM parameter. So we are working with volume with a normal tracker, and try to, or what we do here is that we are generating a unique click ID for every click. And we transmit this click ID with the customer contact. So for example, if we see click ID 123, generated a lead, we know exactly from which source was this lead coming from which advertisement, from which video or image, from which headline. And we transmit this information to the CRM from the customer. So it sounds very complicated, but super easy. For example, on the most times we're working with volume as tracker, but you also can make it with Thrive or something like that.
Yeah. And
with Zapier. And in 80% of the cases, it works. So sometimes you have to make a special, I don't know, server-to-server callback with the CRM from the customer, but it's not very complicated. You can get a freelancer on Fiverr who get this, and it's very easy. So I think the technical stuff isn't here the big issue. It's the issue that you think about it and implement it at the start of the campaign, and not if the system is running and you try to fix the issues. So you have to make it on the beginning of the campaign to make a structured tracking way.
And then how do you, and I think that's key is the planning. I think planning is key here in ensuring, like you mentioned, like don't figure this out as you go, but this is one thing where you have to know, like, that you're generating the leads and that they're converting. You have to be able to track it. Otherwise, it's a mess. Like I learned the hard way just like you, I think. And then how do you deal with the issue of leads don't qualify? And sometimes, you're sending leads, but salespeople don't call, or they don't follow up, or they'll call like a week later. And it's like, well, yeah, like, what do you expect? Like, people look at the ad, they submit the form, or even on the website, people want to be contacting yesterday, not in a week, right? How do you manage that with your clients?
Mm-hmm. So I think you have two parameters which are important here. So at one side, the online marketing side, and on the other hand side, you have the part of the customer. So let me start with the part from the customer. It's important that the customer knows exactly that he have to be very fast if a lead comes in. So it's not successful if the lead comes in now and you call it on Monday. So it's you lost a lot of leads there, and you have to make sure that the customers or that the customer knows about this, and that he or she have a structured sales process, which is already proven, which is already worked. Because just if the sales process or structure is working at the client side, you're able to deliver the best results. Because if you just test a new script, it's very difficult to say where's the issue. Is the issue on the sales script, or is the issue on the online marketing side? And on the other hand side, you have the online marketing part, so to generate the leads. And normally at this beginning, we are starting very broad. So we start with a wizard or something like that, and don't ask a lot of questions to get a lot of leads inside. And then we ask the customers, how's the lead quality? And if he says to us, lead quality sucks, then we add new questions and make a longer process, or longer lead formula or something like that. So we try to qualify the customer or the lead online, because the most call centers or the most customers don't have the capacity to ask all questions on the phone. Of course, it's sometimes better, but you normally, if you're working with clients, you have to qualify the customer almost online.
And what are things that you do to qualify that leads? Like, I would imagine longer forms, more questions, like put the price in there. Like, what are some tips that you've seen work to improve the quality, but also not hinder the quantity? Because there's a balance as well there of like quantity and quality, right? If I put a form of like 20 questions, then you're just not going to get any leads. But what are things that you've seen that work well to qualify or increase the quality of the lead that you're generating, but also you're not hindering as much the quantity of people that you're getting?
Yeah, I think the question must make sense. So it's not good to make just nonsense question to get a longer form, because the customers or the users will feel it, and the questions have to make sense, and you have to ask the right questions to qualify the customer in his or her head. So for example, you can ask questions which are not necessary for the customer, so for your client, for example, but which are necessary if you get an insurance like that or a financial product like that. So it could be very, very simple questions that the customer think about his own behavior. So for example, in insurance, at the insurance area, it could be some questions about general health, or if you smoke or something like that. Also, if the question isn't necessary from a client, or at the financial area, it could be some questions, where do you spend the most of your money, or something like that. So just normal random questions, but not nonsense questions. So I think it's important not just to put in questions there to make the funnel longer. It's important to get the lead qualified, and that's the target, or that's the goal.
Awesome. And then I think we talked a lot about lead gen, and I think this is an interesting topic. The other thing I wanted to talk with you and ask you questions, because this is another thing we get a lot, is sometimes we get designers, sometimes we get people who are website designers, sometimes it's marketers, sometimes people that are on a 9-to-5 and they want to switch altogether. I've seen that you provide services in all areas, right? So it's not just website design, it's also paid ads, it's also Facebook, it's Google, it's email marketing, I would imagine, it's content, because I think you do Outbrain as well. How do you manage that? Because I think one of the biggest things I've seen is it seems like most people push to specialize and say like only do ads, only do this. How do you manage to do everything? And what does that entail in terms of management and in terms of people? Because I think I would imagine the biggest challenge there is people more than clients. Like for clients, it's great. You can do everything, then that's awesome. But a lot of the times what I've encountered with a lot of clients or people that I work with is, I work with this agency that's doing everything, but they can't do everything well. Like they're really good in one thing, or they're not good in anything because they're trying to do all over the place. And I'm sure that doesn't happen to you, but how do you achieve that, I think?
Mm-hmm. So to clarify, of course we make a lot, but not everything. So for example, we don't make affiliate marketing for our customers or something like that. So we almost make a lot, or we almost make everything for our customer. And let me explain why we have this approach for our customers, because of course we could say that we are specialized in just run Facebook ads or just run Google ads or something like that. But normally our customers have an issue. So the Google ad or Facebook ad is just a vehicle to get to reach their own goal. It's not the real issue. The issue is that they don't have clients, that they don't make enough sales. And here you sometimes need a lot more than just Facebook ads. So you have to make a stunning video or have great sales copy. And that's all parts which are super, super important to get the whole thing running, and not just a great Facebook ad with KPIs. Because if you have a nice Facebook ad with a good, I don't know, click-through rate or something like that, but they don't make a sale, it's not a successful ad. And there are so much things which are important that it makes sales for the customer or generate leads. And that's the end goal. So to make sales or to generate sales or generate leads. And of course it's difficult to find the right employees for that parts, because it's very complicated in some parts. So I think you can have for each part complete different employees with a full-time job. So for example, the issue email marketing, it's a very, very big thing. But at the end of the day, it's not rocket science. Yeah. And it's important that the people have their own dedicated specialization, but also see the whole thing and not just their small part, because the whole campaign have to run successfully and not just the email marketing campaign. So everything is important. It's like on a Swiss clock. It's not that only thing in the Swiss clock which is important. It's the whole thing which is important, that it runs successfully. And I think here of course it's a big issue for us to find the right people, but it's a very big USP for us that every gear in the Swiss watch is working together, and not just one gear is turning the right way, but 9 other gears are defect.
And then I like your approach of sometimes Facebook ads, it's a symptom, right? It's not the cause. And sometimes we try to fix the symptom and not the issue of like, oh, it's the website or it's the product or it's this and that. And you mentioned the whole, the Swiss gears, and what are things that you've seen that you should definitely need to know? Like you might not offer all services, but it's not, because I've seen like it's not enough to just know Facebook ads. Like you can know Facebook ads, but if you don't know how to optimize a page and figure out like integrations, and like integrations are key as well. I've seen like what are the things that as a marketer you should know? Like you don't need to be an expert, but I don't think knowing just Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp ads is enough. Like what are other things that you should be able, maybe not offer as a full-fledged service, but things that you should be able to fix and figure out, I think.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a technical and marketing basic understanding of how things working. So for example, if you're work with e-commerce clients, it's important that you see a Shopify or WooCommerce backend and know where are the important things for you. And I think it's important that you also, if it is not your job or not the part of your service, that you see the whole way from the customer and not just your part. So for example, if the way of the customer or the touch points before are an email marketing campaign, it's important that you know how is this email marketing campaign looking, etc., so that you get the whole process in your head. And I think at the end of the day, you need a basic understanding, of course, but you also need that feeling that you want to get know new things. It's important that you're open to new things and learn new things and not just say, okay, that's not my job. I don't make this because it's not my job. So it's important that you're open-minded and also willing to learn other things, other areas, because maybe they are sometimes also part of your business.
And do you hire people or outsource a lot of those other services, I guess? Like, do you have full-time employees, or do you have like consultant people that, you know, they're not full-time employees, but you know that if they're there anytime you need them?
Mm-hmm. We are just working with our own employees and not working with freelancers. In the past, I worked a lot with freelancers, but there are always some issues. For example, if you have a real business, it's very difficult to work with freelancers sometimes. And maybe it's because we are here in a difficult time zone here in Austria, for example. So the most freelancers are in the States or something in America or in Asia. And here in Europe, there are not really a lot of freelancers, or not the normal freelancers. So you have here a lot of expensive experts, but that's not really affordable for you if you, that's not really affordable. So we are just working with our own employees and have for that a good gear or a good gear which we can offer the customer, a good USP which we can offer the customer, because we know all processes internally and don't have a lot of questions from a third party or something like that. So we know the complete process.
And do you have like headcount versus client? Like, how do you manage growth and how do you grow? Because I think one of the a challenge I see with having an agency is that usually the bottleneck is not clients, it's growth, right? Because there's a whole thing of like, I get more clients and then everyone's overworked. I hire more people, and then it's like it's a very delicate balance as well, I guess. How do you structure your teams, and how do you manage that growth of managing cost, but also being able to grow with your clients at the same time and not being able to overwork your clients, your employees or your team members, which leads to bad service, I guess.
I think as you need two important things if you run an agency. You need creativity and you need structure. And the issue here is that the most time you don't find both things in one person. So normally you have a very, very creative genius, but he's super chaotic. Or you have a structured guy, which is the perfect guy for KPIs, but zero creativity. And I think both things are important if you run an agency, because you need the creativity to get good creatives, good ads, but you also need a structure to get a structured process. And for example, your standard operating points, that they're running smooth and that they are documented, so that it's not a big question. For example, if you're onboarding a new customer, hey, what we have to do next. So it must be clear and structured. What's the next step? That, for example, the customer, if you're working with us, you get a piece of chocolate from Styria or something like that. So that's a structured process. It's not a big question what you have to do here. Or if you're onboarding a new campaign, you need a structured process where you know exactly how much time you need for this process. Because at the end of the day, we take a look weekly. in our agenda board, and we see exactly how much time effort we need from one employee, and see if he have overload on work, or if he have some time resources left.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And are you the creative or the structure guy then?
It's difficult to ask it by I think I'm more the structured guy.
Okay, and then do you have a partner who's a creative, or do you hire that, or how did you do that?
The most creative work is done by my key employees, so
Okay.
I think it's a good combination.
Okay, no, that's you never know. There's a lot of people who are in this industry who come either from super creative side and they hire super structured guys, or they come from a super structured space and they hire creative people. So that's a cool question, I think. So I don't want to take more of your time. Let me see. One person asked, I understand that you serve Austrian clients. Do you also serve German-speaking clients in other countries?
Yes, maybe I told it a little bit wrong. So we are sitting here in Austria, but the most of our clients are not from Austria. So it's just because I'm born here in Austria, but the most of our clients are in Germany, Switzerland, or UK, or in the States. So most of our clients are in Germany.
Yeah, because I saw that you have like, I think over 23, or you've worked with countries with.
Yeah, we run ads in over 23 countries.
One of the questions I see is, do you see differences in working in different countries?
Yeah, definitely. So you have different approaches for this. If you run the same campaign for the same company, you have sometimes complete different approaches in other countries. So here in Europe, for example, it's very different if you run a campaign in Germany versus Portugal or Spain. So there are different approaches.
And what are some of those differences that you see, I guess?
I think there are cultural differences which are important. So for example, the normal German person is very structured, and the Spain guys or Italian guys like the family, or the family have more value in those countries than, for example, in Germany. Of course, in Germany it's also important, but you make or you can go further if you get on the family part in Spain than if you get on the family part in Germany.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like probably more emotional, and the other one is more
structured and KPI.
Rational. Yeah, more structured. Yeah. That makes sense. The other thing I see is, let me see, I had this other question. Oh yeah, like, do you see any differences between WooCommerce, Shopify, and Magento, and when to use which one?
Yes, I see differences here, and we run or we have everything in our on our client side. I think it's not a one fits all system. So that's all great systems and all have pros and cons. I think it's to start a business. If you start completely new from scratch, it's super easy to start with Shopify. Because you can set it up quick and dirty and make the first sales. And if you see it works, your offer works, your products works, then you can upgrade it and put in more, I don't know, more details or something like that. But of course, you have issues if you want to scale. So you can scale with Shopify if you go to Shopify Plus, which costs you, I think, 4 or 5K per month. But of course, it's a lot of money for many companies. And you can get another approach if you're using Magento, for example. So here you have a lot of possibilities also to adapt other systems like a CRM system or like, I don't know, a warehouse system. Yeah. So I think it depends a lot of where is your business now, where you want to get in the near future, and what you need at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think you make a good point of, I think a big thing is how many products they have. Because if you have like 10,000 products, I think Shopify is hard to use because you need to integrate it with your inventory, like SAP or one of those. Most companies that have 10,000 products have big Oracle or inventory management system that you have to integrate. You can't do well, let's give it a try. Let's start with like 3 products and we'll update, inventory manually. Like, it just doesn't work like that. And last question from Israel, just because of time, it says, someone who's starting out, is it better to try to get hired in a marketing firm or just start solo with a side job?
Other question, how much time do you have, or how much money do you have? So because of course you learn in a company, you learn not always a lot, because sometimes you're the guy for Facebook ads. So of course it depends on the agency. And I think it's not the answer that the guy wants to have, but it really depends what are your personal goals. Because if you learn it on your own way and you don't have a lot of money left on your bank account, it's a very hard way, and it's very risky, because of course you can have luck, but it also can go to the other side. Yeah. And if you get or if you're working for an agency, it's dangerous, because I think you only see a small part of the agency and not the whole thing.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Thanks for this time. I think it was great. We had like really good points about picking the right customer in terms of money, liking the person, the whole relationship thing. I like the whole symptom versus cost. You have to look at the Swiss watch and like the different gears, and even if you're not an expert, at least understand all of those different things there. Also lead generation, like how to tricks and tips to qualify that better. And I think when starting an agency, you need 2 things, creativity and structure. And I think that's spot on. I think that you have to, you can do both, but I think it's hard. I think that a lot of people are more creative and other people are more structured. So I think that's great. And the whole cultural difference of marketing as well in different countries. I hadn't thought about it, but you're right. Like Spain is more family oriented, like Germany is more structured and organized, and in Latin America it happens the same of we say like Latin American time, because people say like, oh, we're meeting at 5, but it's like, but is it 5 o'clock or Latin American 5? Because 5 American Latin American is like 6, 7, it's never 5. But in Germany, if you say 5 o'clock, it's like 4:58 and people are there,
Absolutely.
Like if you do a party and you say 5, like 5:58, someone's knocking on your door. But in Latin America, if you say 5, it's like, 7:30, people start showing up, and that's normal. Or my wife's American, and it happened at first where we would do something and I would say like, yeah, it's around 6, and it was 6 o'clock, and she's like, man, like we're ready. Like what happened? We need to go. And I'm like, no, like it's fine. Like we can show up at like 7:38, like it's normal, But yeah, no, thanks for taking the time. How can people get in touch with you if they want to service from you, if they want to learn from you? What's the best way to reach out for you too?
There are different ways. So I think a very good way is to reach out on LinkedIn, awesome. If you're using LinkedIn, or via email, for example. So I don't know if the people see if I write something here in the chat.
Yeah, they will.
Okay.
Oh, not this one, but I can share it on the live chat on the Facebook group.
1 second, and I will place my LinkedIn profile. Then everyone can reach me out who wants. 1 second.
Okay. Chat, and I'll copy that into, awesome. Awesome. So I just shared your contact info in our group. And again, thanks for taking the time, Marcel. This was a great talk we had. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good weekend, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for your time. All the best.
You too. Thanks, Marcel. See ya.
Bye-bye.